welcome to another episode of Sci-Connect. I am Teacher Roby and I am your science teacher for today. Are you now ready to learn? Let's start! In this video lesson, you are going to discover more about your reproductive system. As girls and boys at your age, you are at the phase wherein your body is starting to change. And the important thing to do for now is to learn more about the reproductive system's parts and functions so that you can take care of it properly. So learners, let us get started. The most essential competency of this lesson is to describe the parts of the reproductive system and their function. We have here the learning targets. In this lesson, the learners will be able to identify the parts of the female reproductive system, identify the parts of the male reproductive system, explain the functions of the female reproductive system, explain the functions of the male reproductive system, and draw and label the parts of the reproductive system. And now, let us reassess your knowledge about the reproductive system by trying this activity. Directions: choose the letter of the correct answer and write it in your notebook. Number 1. The male sex hormone is produced by which male reproductive organ? A. Penis, B. Prostate, C. Testes, D. Urethra. Number 2. What is the stage in human development in which a person becomes physically mature? A. Adulthood, B. Infancy, C. Maturity, D. Puberty. Number 3. The female sex hormone is produced by which female reproductive organ? A. Cervix, B. Ovary, C. Uterus, D. Fallopian tube. Number 4. What is reproduction? A. When a young organism matures. B. When parents produce an offspring. C. When a young organism makes adults. D. When a young is an exact copy of itself. Number 5. Why is reproduction important? A. To produce new organisms. B. To sustain the life of organisms. C. To develop the life of organisms. D. To guarantee the continuity of organisms. This time, learners, let us do this activity. Directions: decode the jumbled letters based on the given description. 1. Holds the fetus in place during pregnancy. 2. It provides a passageway for sperm and menstrual flow. 3. It is the external male organ with a tip called glans. 4. It is the passageway of sperm released from the testes. 5. It is where the embryo and fetus develop. Well done, learners, for finishing the activity. This time, we are going to unlock the difficult words found in this lesson in this word bank. We have here the words external, mature, passageway, pregnancy, reproduction. And now, learners, let us explore more the reproductive system by doing this activity. This is entitled Video Watching. Objective: describe the parts of the male and female reproductive systems and their function. I want you to watch the videos and take note of the important details because you are going to answer the guide questions afterwards. You can always replay it.
If you keenly observe, every kid has characters taken from the parents. Yes, characters from both mom and dad. Have you ever wondered why this happens? Why do we find random characters in the kids which belong to the same parents? In simple language, we can say that it is because of the sexual reproduction in organisms. Yes, although the logical reasoning can be provided by genetics, we will not really get into the details of it. We will restrict ourselves to the major process responsible for this. Now you may wonder as to how sexual reproduction can be responsible for the variations in organisms. For this, we need to stop by the definition of sexual reproduction once again. Do you remember what it was? Let me help you. Sexual reproduction is the type of reproduction which involves fusion of gametes to give rise to new individual. Now here the term fusion of gametes is the answer to our question. Why is that so? This is because if we say that the zygote is formed with a fusion of gametes, then it means the newly formed individual will have a blend of characters. Thus, in order to learn sexual reproduction, we need to understand the gametes first. Gametes are sex cells and are different in both males and females. Do you know what they are called? Yes, we have come across these terms. The male gamete is called sperm, while the female gamete is called ovum. In order to study them, we first need to take a glance at the reproductive systems. This will give us an idea of how the gametes are produced and help us understand the fertilization process better. So in this video, let us learn about the male reproductive system. To begin with, we take a look at the location where the sperms are exactly produced. These oval-shaped structures on either side are the ones we are referring to. The single structure is called testis, while the pair is called testes or simply a pair of testicles. Now these are an important part of the system and need to be protected, right? So we have a covering of skin over it. This forms a bag-like structure, and do we have a name for it? Yes, the bag-like structure is called the scrotum. So the scrotum is the pouch which contains the testis. Now the sperms produced will have to travel in order to reach the female body. So who will make sure that the sperms are carried outside the testes? This responsibility is taken up by the mass of coils that we can see here. This is called the epididymis and the pair is called the epididymides. The mass then carries the sperms to this single connecting long coil. This is called the vas deferens. Where will the deferens carry it further? Directly outside the body? No, they will carry it into something called as the ejaculatory ducts. But where does the ejaculatory duct head to? It heads to a destination where the sperms get mixed with a nourishing fluid. Wait a second, what kind of fluid are we referring to? And why is it needed here? Basically, the sperms need nourishment to survive. Also, they need to be protected from acidic conditions coming their way. Hence, various glands come to the rescue by secreting a few important secretions. The first one is the seminal vesicle. It secretes a fluid that helps in nourishing the sperms. Can you see this bulb-like structure here? It is the prostate gland which helps in secreting the prostate fluid. Now the sperms floating in the fluids reach the urethra from where they can be released outside the body. But wait, all the secretions are not yet completed. this P-shaped gland found here gives another important secretion. It is called the Cooper's gland or even the bulbourethral gland. Now with this secretion, the formation of semen is complete. The semen is simply the fluid carrying the sperms. It is carried out by the urethra which runs through the penis. Now these sperms will reach the female reproductive system and only one among all will be able to carry out the fertilization of the ovum. But tell me one thing. Looking at the structure of this single sperm, can you guess whether it is a unicellular or a multicellular structure? It is a single cell. Although the structure may not seem to be that of a single cell, the sperm is definitely unicellular. It bears a head region called the nucleus. Then it has this middle part with the mitochondria for providing energy to swim across. But then who will help in the swimming process physically? That's the business of this tail region. The tail helps in the swimming activity. Now we are done with the basics of the male reproductive system. Let me quickly recap the process we saw above. The sperms are produced by the testes. The mass of coils called the epididymis carries the sperms to the vas deferens, which is a long coil. From there, it goes to the ejaculatory duct where it gets mixed with nourishing fluids. From there, it reaches the urethra. And after the secretion from the Cooper's gland, the formation of semen is complete. So what will we learn before the fertilization process? Of course, the female reproductive system. Do watch our next video to learn more about it. We have taken a look at the reproductive system in males. Now, before moving on to the process of fertilization, we need to understand the place where this process takes place. Yes, I am referring to the female reproductive system. The site of ovum production, fertilization and the uterus are all a part of the female reproductive system. Let's have a look at this important system in this video. Do you remember where we began studying the male reproductive system? Yes, it was the site of sperm production. Similarly, we will begin learning from the site of production of the egg cell or simply the ovum. So the journey begins from these oval structures called the ovaries, one ovary on either side. Did you notice that the ovaries are connected to these tube-like structures? But they're not connected directly. If we look at it carefully, we find that there are finger-like projections which connect the two. These finger-like projections are very important for receiving the ovum when released from the ovaries. But do they have a scientific name? Yes, these finger-like projections are called the fimbriae. The fimbriae help to hold the ovum released and also help to sweep it to the tubes present ahead. But why does the ovum require the sweeping activity? Can't it travel on its own? No, it can't. Unlike the motile sperm, the ovum is non-motile. It cannot move until it is pushed or swept by some other cells. Now these tube-like structures that we are referring to since a long time also have a scientific name. They are called as the fallopian tubes. And what do you think will be their importance? Let me guess. Is it that they connect the ovaries to the uterus? Yes, that is definitely one important function. But more important than this is the fact that the fallopian tubes are the site of fertilization. Yes, it is the fallopian tubes where the sperms are able to fertilize the ovum. And from here, the zygote starts dividing and grows into an embryo. Now, where will this embryo go further? Needless to say, the uterus. We know that the uterus, commonly referred to as the womb, is the site of development of a baby. And when the growth of the baby is completed, it comes out of the mother's body through the vagina. Do we know what the vagina is? It is basically a small passage that opens to the exterior. It is the site where sperms are received in the female's body. On the other hand, the same passage is used for passing the baby out of the body during childbirth. Now that you've learned both the reproductive systems, can you tell me which one is more complex than the other one? Just think for a moment. If you think it is the male reproductive system, then you may be wrong. Yes, the female reproductive system is more complex. The system is designed for the complete process of fertilization as well as the growth and the development of the baby. That is the reason why it is slightly more complicated compared to the male reproductive system. This was just an overview of how the female reproductive system is. We would get to know how every organ in this system works efficiently when we understand the process of fertilization and the development process of the embryo in detail. For that, you need to watch our next video.
Here are the guide questions. 1. What is the function of the uterus? 2. What is the role of the fallopian tube in the female reproductive system? 3. What is the male reproductive system for? 4. What is the role of the urethra? 5. Why is the reproductive system important? You are given 5 minutes to answer this activity, so set your timers now and start answering. Good job, learners! 5 minutes is up and you have finished this activity. This time, I want you to get your ballpen and your notebook, listen carefully, and take note of the important details because I will be discussing to you the different parts and function of the reproductive system. Let us start with the female reproductive system. Ovary holds the egg cells and makes the hormones estrogen and progesterone. Fallopian tube or oviduct catches the egg from the ovary and transports it to uterus, site of fertilization. Uterus, site of implantation, holds the developing embryo, has a lining called endometrium, which is enriched with blood vessels to nourish the embryo, forms the placenta. Cervix allows menstrual blood to flow into the vagina. It directs the path of the sperm into the uterus. Vagina allows entry of sperm and exit of baby at birth or the so-called birth canal. Next, let us have the male reproductive system. Testicle produces sperm and the hormone testosterone. Epididymis matures and stores sperm. Sperm duct or vas deferens carries sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. Urethra allows the passage of either urine or sperm. Penis places sperm inside the body of a female. Scrotum keeps testes at a lower temperature for meiosis to occur. Seminal vesicle and prostate gland produces seminal fluid which feeds the sperm and allows them to swim. Sperm and seminal fluid are collectively called semen. Bladder stores urine. The bladder receives urine from the kidneys. When the bladder is full, urine is released into the urethra. And now, learners, after all the important details that I have discussed, I want you to apply what you have learned. Directions: draw the male and female reproductive systems in your activity notebook. Identify the parts and give its functions by completing the table below. Note: make one table for the male and one table for the female. You can use this diagram of the female reproductive system as your reference. And then, Identify the different parts which are numbered from 1 to 5. We also have here the male reproductive system. Still, you are going to identify the different parts which are numbered from 1 to 5. Once you are done with your activity, you can write down your reflection by completing the following sentence prompts. I have learned that. I wish to ask my teacher about. And now for the last part of this video lesson, we are going to assess what you have learned. Directions: choose the letter of the correct answer and write it in your notebook. Number 1. The female sex hormone is produced by which female reproductive organ? A. Cervix. B. Ovary. C. Uterus. D. Fallopian tube. Number 2. What is the stage in human development in which a person becomes physically mature? A. Adulthood. B. Infancy. C. Maturity. D. Puberty. Number 3. The male sex hormone is produced by which male reproductive organ? A. Penis. B. Prostate. C. Testes. D. Urethra. Number 4. Why is reproduction important? A. To produce new organisms. B. To sustain the life of organisms. C. To develop the life of organisms. D. To guarantee the continuity of organisms. Number 5. What is reproduction? A. When a young organism matures. B. When parents produce an offspring. C. When a young organism makes adults. D. When a young is an exact copy of itself. Congratulations, learners, for completing all the activities about the male and female reproductive systems. Do not forget to keep your activity notebooks because it will be collected and will be checked by your science teacher. Answer diligently. Congratulations, learners, for finishing this video lesson. I hope you enjoyed learning with me today. Remember, learning is fun with Sci-Connect.